Warmest greetings to all in the blessed name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Now let us turn our Bibles to 1 Samuel chapter 2. 1 Samuel chapter 2. Now after the record of Hannah's prayer, God begins to talk about the situation in Israel, starting with what has been happening in the temple. And God begins by saying in verse 12, "Now the sons of Eli were sons of Belial. They knew not the Lord." Now what a sad thing to hear. The temple life was supposed to be a holy life, was supposed to be the example, was supposed to be the motivation for the entire Israel to live for God. But yet, Eli's sons were sons of Belial. Sons of Belial means uselessness. All right, sons that are of no profit. Sons that are, living for self. That's useless to God. Right? Terrible, wicked, spiritually. And they were supposed to be priests. Now again, the priests were supposed to be representatives of who God is, and to show the people what holiness is. But yet, these people that were supposed to be up there, leading the people to know God, God called them the sons of Belial. What a dark state Israel was in. And then God talked about the sacrifice, right? The sacrifice, and gave details about the sacrifice for us to learn. The sacrificial system, the Levitical sacrificial system, they were not just outward things. You know that, all right? Even in the New Testament, it's expounded. The sacrificial system were not just about killing animals' blood, and then do this, don't do that. They were all designed by God intentionally with specific purposes to teach. All right, to teach. It's not just do these things and then you're fine. They all represented certain principles to teach the people how to approach God, how to live their lives. So this system had very clear and vivid pictures. So when they do it, they see the blood, they see the killing, they see all the steps that they must take, what they are not allowed to do. They, in their minds, would understand who God is, how God functions, and therefore how they are supposed to respond to this God in their lives. So that is the Levitical sacrificial system. Many things that were implemented then, today, you see in the New Testament, is taught. The principles are still there. All right? Now, why did God begin to talk about these sacrifices? When you read these things, now you cannot read them with understanding and learn and draw spiritual lessons from it if you do not understand, what God told them to do and why what the priest customs were so wicked. Now, in fact, if you look at verse 17, it came to a point where the men abhorred offering of the Lord. They abhorred the offering of the Lord. The sacrificial system became something that was so abused that in their hearts, the people of Israel, the lay people, think about this, the lay people, they get so grieved, and every time they bring the sacrifice, they get so upset. They don't even feel like doing it anymore. Now, why? What is the point that God wants to bring? Now, today's title is "The Best is for God." Why? You say, preacher, where do you get this from? Pastor, how do you come to that conclusion? Because of the sacrificial system. Now, that's why we keep encouraging you to study God's Word. The more you study God's Word, when you read these passages, you will know what it is about. I hope those of you who take the series on Leviticus, you remember what you learned. Because when you read that, immediately you know the best is for the Lord. It's obvious. Now, why? First, I want to begin with why it is the best is for the Lord. Then we learn the principles about giving of our best. Now, look at verse 16, all right? Verse 16. Now, if any man, verse 15 first, for connection's sake. Also, before they burnt the fat, the priest servant came and said to the men that sacrificed, give flesh to roast for the priest. For he will not have sodden flesh of thee, but raw. And if any man said unto him, let them not fail to burn the fat presently, and then take as much as thy soul desireth, then he will answer him, nay, but thou shalt give it to me now, and if not, I will take it by force. Now, what's the big deal? What's the problem? Well, those of you who studied Leviticus, you will understand the fat. All right, the fat is the best part and is kept and is reserved for the Lord. Now, today, in a sense, we also like the fat, right? Especially roasting. The fat is the most fragrant part. In fact, the burning of the fat, the fragrance is a significance of that it will go up as fragrance to God, and God receives the gift, to the very best. So the fats are reserved for God alone. Now, how do we know that? I cannot explain this to you because you will think I make it up. Turn to Leviticus chapter 7. Leviticus chapter 7. Now, why was God so angry? Immediately after that, God says, the sin of the young man was very great before the Lord, after he mentioned the fat. And the people keep saying the fat, the fat, the fat. Why did the people say, please burn the fat first, all right? So the servant will come, all right? Then they say, well, give it to me, I want it raw, all right? The sons of Eli want it raw, because you want to roast it with the fat. Now, ask yourself, why did the people beg the servant? Oh, please, can you at least tell the priest? You look at, he said, please, let's tell the priest, at least burn the fat first, all right? Burn the fat first. Then whatever he wants after that, take it. Why did the people insist on that? Because the people understood. They understood. And they remembered what it means. Now, if you turn to Leviticus chapter 7, right? I'll just read. Oh, sorry, I haven't turned there myself. Leviticus chapter 7. Now, if you look at verse 22. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, saying, ye shall eat no manner of fat. This is not about your health, please. No manner of fat, of ox, or of sheep, or of goat. And the fat of the beast that dieth of itself, and the fat of that which is torn with beasts, may be used in any other use, but ye shall in no wise eat of it. In fact, he says in verse 25, for whosoever eateth the fat of the beast of which men offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord, even that soul that eateth it, which is the fat, shall be cut off from his people. That is how serious. God says the fat is not allowed to be eaten, these specific animals. Anyone eats it, cut off. You know, cut off means excommunicated from Israel. The whole principle is they knew this one thing untouchable because it is the very best part of the animal to be burnt to the Lord. That is why the people said, please at least burn it first. They understood the best is for the Lord. They were worried. And they wanted, when they brought the sacrifices, they wanted the best for the Lord. That is the principle they always knew. Now, if you look at Leviticus chapter 7. Now, God says, now these three kinds of animal, the animals that are meant for offerings, you cannot eat the fat. Now, in fact, it's so strong. It's so strong in verse 23, in verse 24, sorry. Even if these particular animals are torn with beasts, meaning to say, well, they were killed by other predators, you still cannot eat their fat. They were supposed to be very clear about that. The best is always for the Lord. That is how serious. But what? But ye shall in no wise eat it, but then, well, we can use it, all right? You can use it. Maybe used in any other use, except eating. Eating means you take it and you consume it into you for your own pleasure, for your own consumption. They can use it. Well, sometimes they will use it for polishing things or for making certain things. They're allowed to do that. Why? Because every time they use it, they remember, I cannot eat this. And as they use it in their daily life, they always remember, I cannot eat this. Because the best is for the Lord. So it's a reminder still. Constantly reminded, the best in my life is for the Lord. This fact, by Jewish exegesis, Jewish tradition, has always been understood as untouchable because it's the best for the Lord. Now, it was that serious for Israel. So these laws that God put to teach the people and to teach them to live like that was contravened by the sons of Belial. The sons of Belial. Now, keep your finger or keep a bookmark on Leviticus 7. Then we come back to 1 Samuel. Right, so now you understand, all right? Now you understand why the people begged them. Beg them. If they want, take as much as they want, but give the best to the Lord. Please do that. Now, don't you think it's very sad that it comes to a stage where the congregation was more desirous to give the best to the Lord than the priests? Now, then let's come back to 1 Samuel, all right? 1 Samuel. Now, when we begin to understand this, we have to ask, well, in my life, what is my attitude towards God? Now, we're not saying today you cannot eat fat, all right? But these principles have been taught clearly. In the New Testament, it's may explain, give of your best. Give of your best. Your best belongs to God. We have to ask, is it true in my life? And we'll see some areas that we can question ourselves on later. But when you read this, when you and I read this, you begin to see how terrible a thing the priests were. I don't care. They knew the fat were very nice. Give it to me raw. I want to roast it and eat it for myself. Now, what are some of the principles, attitude that we need to have when it comes to, well, giving our best to the Lord? So it is not just, well, the best for the Lord. There were certain things that led up to this. Their attitude, their actions must be correct as well. So it is not just, well, the best for the Lord, the best for the Lord. There are certain things must be present, all right? Now, if you look at 1 Samuel, what was the whole problem? Why did God elaborate on what the servant did for the sons of Eli? What? Look at verse 13. Now the priest's customs with the people was that any man who offered sacrifice, the priest's servant came, while the flesh was in the seething with a fleshhook, he would take 3-teeth hook in his hand, all right? Now, the emphasis is the priest's custom. The priest's custom means God is saying this was not his law. This was not his regulation. God made it clear it was this priest's custom. Means they made up this regulation and this expectation themselves. They've been breaking God's law, in other words. Don't talk even about the best. Their attitude was what? Send the servant, take a 3-hook flesh, verse 14, and he struck it in the pan of kettle or caldron or pot. All that the fleshhook brought up, the priest took for himself. Now, what is the problem with that? Because we know in the Old Testament, the offerings, the sacrifices were also, all right, to be eaten by the priest. That is their source of provision. Their source of provision. The sacrifices they brought, and then they sacrifice, and then they eat of it. Now, what is the problem here? One key word for you and I to remember is verse 13. Now, when the custom is when any, verse 13, came with offerings. Now, the word is wow. While that was happening, means the sacrifice is not over yet. While the sacrifice was going on, he would just slam that 3-hook piece. Now, 3-hook, why 3-hook? Grab as much as possible. Not one hook, you go in there, you hook one piece. 3, all right? This, I think you can call potluck, right? You just throw it in, drag as much out as possible while the sacrifice is going on. And then the other thing to realize is, look at verse 14. Now, all that the fleshhook brought up, the priest took for himself. All. Now, what was their attitude? While the sacrifice was going on, they chose whatever they wanted. Now, this whole sacrifice, now, with that, you turn back to Leviticus chapter 7. You must understand God's principle, otherwise, you say, I want to give my best, give my best. There are attitudes involved. Leviticus chapter 7. Now, if you look at verse 30 and 31, this is describing exactly what sacrifices should be like. Verse 30, his own hand shall bring the offerings of the Lord made by fire, the fat with the breast. It shall he bring, and it shall he bring, that breast may be waved for a wave offering before the Lord. Now, 31 is key. And the priest shall burn the fat upon the altar, but the beast shall be Aaron's, the breast shall be Aaron's and his son. And verse 32, and the right shoulder shall ye give to the priest for a heave offering of the sacrifice of your peace offerings. Okay, then in verse 34, God emphasized again, for the wave and the breast heave shoulder have I taken of the children of Israel from off the sacrifice of their peace offering, and have given them unto Aaron the priest and unto his sons by a statute forever among the children of Israel. Now, this principle is forever. It's always to teach the children of Israel a certain principle. Now, you will notice in verse 31, the priest shall burn the fat. Now, listen. What God is saying is, fat must be burned. Burn means you cannot eat it. It's gone. Fat must be burned. But the rest, they offer it. And the rest of the animal, they offer it. And in particular, after they have offered. Now, verse 34. Now, it says, for the breast and the heave shoulder have I taken of the children of Israel from off the sacrifices of their peace offering. Means, after they have offered the animal to God, God said, I will take out 2 parts. After, from off of it, after I'll take out 2 parts, the breast and the right shoulder. These are what will be assigned to the priest to eat. So now you go back to what the sons of Belial did. They potluck the thing. They don't care whether the breast or the right shoulder will come out. I take whatever I want. Now, the first principle about giving our best that we need to learn. First and foremost, God gets all first. You say, I want to give our best to the Lord. Then the attitude must, everything, God gets it first. God said, the sacrifice is to me first. Then I get whatever God assigns to me. The attitude was not that. I get it first. Now that is why in 1 Samuel, the emphasis that we see, while the flesh was seething, while it was happening, no, God, you're not going to get it first. What is happening? I choose first. I choose first. Now, Christian, when we say we want to give the best to the Lord, the very first principle is everything God's. Until in your heart, you realize it's not for me to pick and choose which is best. Please remember that. God defines what is best. They cannot say, God, I like tongue, Some people like tongue, right? I like oxtail, Or whatever it is, I like that part, so that part is best, right? So I give you that part. It's not for you and I to define. Everything is God's. And best is defined by God, not you and I. Do you just say everything is yours? No, what is best is yours to choose. We often hold back what is best from God. And we say, God, I think this is best, this one for you. Right? It's what God defines as best. But the important reason is God gets it first. The sacrifice was to teach that. After they had sacrificed, then these are assigned to them. Remember that. All right? Now, the other thing that we have to learn from this principle is, well, what is the best? What is the best? You know, today there is this idea, right? There's this idea that I give my best to the Lord. Their thinking is this. Certain things in my life I feel that I'm very good at. Maybe drawing, maybe singing, maybe playing certain instruments. And then they decide that that is the best. That is the best. And I will use this to glorify God. Use this for God. Now, in fact, this is a very strong teaching today. All right? Very strong teaching in many mega churches. The young people are told, adults as well, now, whatever, all right, whatever you choose what is best and then you give it to God. Well, it sounds nice and all that, but what it means is this. Young people, they're pursuing certain things. They want to pursue certain things. And because they feel they're good in it and their interest is in that, now, for example, like music. I read this testimony of this person who heard someone preach this, and then say, you know, there are naysayers. Naysayers mean people pour cold water when you say, I want to give my best to God. And you know what it was about? He says this, now I realize I have a gift. I have a gift to excite people in concerts. He said, you know, when I play the electric guitar, and then, you know, I trash things, people get very excited. They say, that means my gift is I can excite people. But there are people who say, hey, come on, you know, you can't say that. You know, this is a rock concert. You can't say that you're offering your best to God. But say, but that is what I'm good at. I realize that people get excited about that. And then many people say, yeah, these are naysayers. And one person even say something like, ignore these people. You know, you can excite the hell out of people. Even use languages like that, Christian. Excite the hell out of people. Excite the hell out of your concert. Go and do it. Now, that is not what God is saying. God is very specific what is best. You define best by what God says in the Bible, in the Word of God. You can't say, I take anything. So that is why worship is like that today. I can play the electric guitar or bring them up, right? If you get people excited, that is your best. And people, sportsmen, also say that. You know, I realize I'm very good at this sport, you know. And therefore, I will play it on Sunday. Because the only time this sport is played is on Sunday. And Sunday is the biggest crowd. So I am offering my best to God by playing very well. And before I go out, I kneel down and I offer God, you know, you gave me this gift, this skill. I offer my best to you. Now that is the concept today. So this giving your best, you can read many books. You can hear many messages. That is the concept of the best. But they don't realize. The best is not what you define. It's what God defines is best. Things that are spiritual, not things that are carnal, not things that you want to go do under the guise of that. Very often say, I do it for the glory of God. When I win the game on Sunday, I do it for the glory of God. How can you glorify God when you break the fourth commandment? There's no sense to it. Right? So I just want to make sure that you understand that clearly. So the first principle, God gets it all, and God defines what is best in it. Do you have that attitude, my friends? I ask you. Do you have the attitude that everything is from God? The whole principle of you bring the offering, everything goes to God first, is this principle. This whole animal is mine. It's mine. Until you and I come to that mentality. Don't talk about, well, yes, I want to give the best to the Lord. Very often what we mean is, I want to do what I want, and after that, I bring in God's name in vain and say, you see, I'm glorifying God. You see, I'm offering this game, this drawing, this whatever to the Lord, when in the midst of it, we are sinning. To sin and to make something an idol in our lives, we use God's name in vain and say, well, I'm giving my best to God. Don't fall into that trap, please. When they offer up the fats, and when God defines that, then it will be something that God receives. All right? Now, you know, we give our best to many things in our life. We're willing to give our all to many things in our lives. You know why? when the thing is good for us, our time, our talent, our energy, we put the best of those into certain things in our life, our jobs, our family, our studies. But the reality is because it's important to us, not what God defines and what God wants us to do. So this principle of all belongs to me, you start there first, and then within that, what God defines as best is best from Scriptures. Don't make up your own. Now, so that's another principle, all right? Another principle. Now, then we go further. So it is the second one. Now, God decides what is to be kept, what is to be separate to Him, separated unto Him. In fact, what sacrifices, what kind of animals, for which sacrifice, the priest gets what? Like down here in particular, the peace offering, get the right shoulder and get the breast. And then what is allowed for the families to bring home, all right? You remember studying that, right? It's also defined by God. So what can be separated is defined by God, not you and I. Now, this constant idea in these sacrifices is God defines what is to be separated. You know where this is going, right? Now, the second principle about giving our best to the Lord is actually separation, holiness, which is why I constantly emphasize the remind us the word holy in the Bible comes from the root word of separate. Separate. That is why it's holy. Separated from sin, separated from the world, separated from carnality. Separation is holiness. So God is the one who teaches this principle constantly in these sacrifices about separation. But the sons of Belial, they did not care. I define what gets separated and what's separated for me. What suits me. What I like, I separate. Randomly, even. As I feel like. So this constant idea of what is separated and what is allowable is defined by God. Now, the Levitical system and a ceremonial system, even their dressing and all that, God constantly emphasized biblical separation. You cannot sew this kind of materials together. You cannot this and that. It's constantly to teach the principle. Not that you cannot wear materials, but was to teach them. Every time they put on the clothes, every time they offer the sacrifices, God defines separation and God expects separation, holiness, biblical separation. From uncleanness, from ungodly people, from falsehood, from false teaching, from false prophets. Separation. Separation is not isolation. Please understand that. We've emphasized this to death. You engage them for the purpose of helping them to know the truth, so that they will also be, in obedience to God, separated from falsehood. Now, separation means, if you make them feel like you're part of them, you participate in their worship, you participate in their so-called sacrifices and all that, then there's no difference between you and them, right? So that is why biblical separation is crucial. It's part of giving your best. You cannot separate that. Just like you cannot separate holiness before giving your best. So all these principles are this. You cannot believe and think that you are offering your best until you have separation in your life. Separation from sin, separation from falsehood. That is a requirement, taught. So when all these things are happening, these thoughts are clear in their mind. They are taught what they mean. Explained further in the New Testament to us. When you say, I want to offer the best to the Lord, then we have to search our hearts. Are there things that I still would not submit to God, that I would not separate from? As long as that is in your heart, no matter how you feel that you're obeying Him, serving Him, giving to Him, sacrificing to Him, and so on, you still miss the point until holiness is your aim. Now, I'm not talking about perfection. There's no such thing as sinless perfection on earth for the believer. But as long as you know, the meaning of perfect means as long as you know that there is sin, by the grace of God, you obey and separate from it. That is the meaning, all right? And it doesn't mean that you're able to separate perfectly and you will never fall. But your intention is to separate. Your desire is to have nothing to do with it. That is the principle. Now, if that principle is not in your life, you think that being a Christian means, sometimes I want to do this, I just do. And then, if I feel like, then I go to church. If I feel like, then I pray. If I feel like, then I do something for God. You have not separated from the love of the world. You have not. It's spiritual adultery. So this principle must be present. So when you say, I want to give of my best, all of us sing that. All of us say, yes, honestly in my heart, I want to give of my best to the Lord. Now you begin to understand. As long as I will not live a holy life, it's just lip service, that is all. All right? So that is the second principle that is taught. First, God gets all. Everything belongs to God. Not while it is happening, you grab what you want. All right? Second, holiness before offering your best. It must be with it, rather, along with it. All right? That is why the fat must be burned. And then they see the fat burn, they remember that, and they say, these things are still there. God decides what is separation. Now, when in your life you struggle with certain principles of separation, whether it's from sin, whether it's from falsehood, whether it's from certain things in your life that you're in disobedience to God, it renders your offering unacceptable. It's always, who can approach my holy hill? Who can approach my holy hill? Now, I'm not saying that God is so unforgiving, so without long-suffering and patience. God is with us. God knows that we are flesh. But we cannot keep going on in it. All right? Because you will eventually become the sons of Belial. I emphasized in the beginning, they were sons of Belial, sons of no profit. They would not follow these principles. So God says, they are no profit to me. Were they doing things in the temple, lighting the candle, making sure the temple operate every day? They were. It can be our life. We go to work, we try to evangelize, to be a light. The temple, the lighting of the lamps there were to represent Israel is light. Well, I go there, I be a light and everything, until this is settled in your heart. You cannot offer the best. So don't take this lightly. Now, the third thing, all right, the third principle that we learn, look at 1 Samuel. Now, then the second word, in chapter 2, verse 15. And before they burned the fat. Before is the other word we must remember. While and before. Then they say, give me the meat raw. Now, not only they say, I take first. I take first. Before they burn the flesh, I choose and I demand that I grab it first. Give it to me raw. And when the people pleaded with them, now at least in verse 16, at least let them not fail to burn the fat presently. Presently means first, then take as much as their soul desire. What are the people pleading with them? They're pleading, please, don't take what you want and then leave the leftovers for God. Let God take the best. Let God have what He takes first. And then you all take the leftover, as much as you want in the leftover. Now, it's very sad that the people, the congregation, have to remind the priest, please do that. You don't take what you want and leave leftovers to God. Now, that is the principle about giving our best to the Lord. Giving our best to the Lord. But I say, no, raw. And I take whatever parts I want. Now, Christian, we have to ask ourselves, leftovers, are we like that? What is our attitude? We'll look at some examples, God willing, as we go along. What is your attitude about giving to God? We say a lot, but all belongs to God, all comes from God. But really, if it is true, that and we examine our lives, we have to ask ourselves, what do we really reserve for ourselves? Grab for ourselves first, and then leave the rest of our remaining time, talent, and treasure to God. Whether it's in our job, whether it's in our workplace, our schools, whether it's in our homes. What is it? Ask ourselves. Be honest. Be honest. Leftovers is the most insulting way to live before God. Leftovers. We may not think of that ourselves, but the reality is, in many ways, that is how we live. That's how we live. But you know how we just keep feeling that, Lord, I'm giving the best to you. But in reality, we are not living that. Now then the fourth principle, as we've already started, then we move on, all right? We move on. Now actually, before that, let's learn some more principles, all right? Let's learn some more principles. Now there are two parts, right? Two parts given. We read earlier on. They grab whatever parts they want. But if you turn, all right, please turn to Leviticus chapter 7 again. Another principle about giving our best, as we learn from the sacrifices, is this. Look at chapter 7. Right, look at verse 34. For the wave breast and the heave shoulder have I taken of the children of Israel from off the sacrifices of their peace offering. Means it's taken off. It belongs to God and it's done first to God. After that, then the priest get the parts that God separated, defined. Okay? Now, then he says, I've given them unto Aaron the priest and his sons. Now, what is this breast, wave breast and heave shoulder? What does it signify? Why was the people so upset? Can you let God take what he wants first and only those that God assigned to you, then you take those. And as much as those parts you want, all right? Can you do that? Now, the wave offering and the breast offering are the heave shoulder. They have significance. Again, Jewish exegesis, Jewish dictionary explains. And some of these words are also used in Exodus to signify certain things. All right? No, so the understanding is the wave offering. The wave offering, which is the breast, is waved. All right? It's waved horizontally. You see that. They're waved horizontally. Waved before God and man. Now, it's very important to remember this because after that, God will talk about Samuel. It's waved before. Now, then the heave offering. The heave offering, heave means you lift it up. All right? You lift it up. Heave up and down. All right? They have significance. Wave offering before the Lord. Now, is to signify all this before you, Lord, are yours. I wave it before you. Means it is a sign of, Lord, all that is consecrated to you. It's a sign of consecration. In the New Testament, you keep learning about consecration. It's from the principle of their offerings. So whenever they do that, in their heart say, Lord, take my life and let it be consecrated, Lord, to thee. That is what it means. And all men will see. But it's not for men to see, all right? It's way before the Lord, but other sacrifices are there. People who offer sacrifices are there, all right? So they will see. But it's before the Lord, Lord. It is not to show off to men. So there's consecration. You want to talk about fats best to the Lord without consecration, it is also half-hearted and it's not the best. Consecration is the best. Why do you think Romans remind us? Present your bodies a living sacrifice. Not present certain parts, your bodies. The whole thing is your bodies. Present it as a living sacrifice. So the New Testament draws from the Old Testament to explain to us all these offerings had one clear principle. And through the wave offering is all my life consecrated to you. That is what they're doing. All right? Nothing do I withhold. You see everything, Lord, and this is what you define. I consecrate to you. Now then the heave offering, all right? The heave offering, up and down, all right, is to symbolize God. I present it, all right? It is offered to you alone. That's why it's upwards. All offered to you in consecration. So together with that, it completes the peace offering. You know these two offerings, if you remember what you studied, and God already said in Leviticus 7, they are brought with the peace offering in verse 34. Do you know the significance of it? Verse 34, this wave breast and heave shoulder from the sacrifices of their peace offerings. So look up here. When they say, I bring my peace offering, in this peace offering there are two things they bring, the wave offering and the heave offering. First, the peace offering is not complete with these two. The complete picture is, Lord, you have forgiven my sins, you have saved me. Or Lord, you have helped me, like Hannah's case, right? You have helped me for your glory. Now, when I bring this peace offering in thanksgiving that, to you, then you bring and say, Lord, therefore, because of you, I consecrate and offer my life to you. So when they see the fat is burned. The shoulder and the breast is not burned. All right? When they see the fat is burned, but these two are not burned because it will be given away, they will always remember. The best is for the Lord, and these two, the wave and the heave offering, is to remind me. The best is for the Lord means that consecration and total offering to you. Then this is a complete picture. Lord, you saved me. Now I have peace with you. Then what? I'm so happy I'm going to heaven? No. You say, the peace offering, bring these two. That they remember it's not, you saved me, I'm going to heaven, thank you very much, I go enjoy myself. Now take my life and let it be consecrated, Lord, to thee. So all these are principles. You know all these things in the New Testament. But all these in the Old Testament were to teach that. They do that all the time and it's ingrained in them. All right? That is why the Old Testament must be read. There are some Christians who are New Testament Christians only. They think the Old Testament is past already, no need to read it. When you read it, the picture becomes so complete, so rich, and you understand why God did those things. The emphasis was that. All right? The emphasis was that. Now, ultimately, the priest must keep that. They abuse that. Now, why are these two parts given? Why was it such a big problem? And God, he abhorred. The young man the sin of the young man was very great before the Lord. Why? Now, when God chose the breast and the shoulder for them, there were also significance. When they receive it, they were supposed to remember. All right, the breast, always talk about like the breastplate of the priest. All right, close to the heart. Whenever they see the breast, they will remember, these people are close to my heart. I will bring them before the Lord. I will pray for them. I love them. I care for them. I teach them God's word. But instead, they live for themselves. Now it's the same for us today. This whole life of ours, is there must be this love for the Lord, love for God's people, love for lost souls. But how we abuse all the gifts that God gives to us and live for ourselves. There's no love for God, very little, if any. There's no love for souls. There's no love for His kingdom's work. We use all the things to pursue and live for ourselves. God said the sin was great because even when they have these offerings, they do not care. They don't have any love. The right shoulder, in specific, the right shoulder, all right, is to remind them of mediatorship, all right? The right, like today, right hand or fellowship. Why the right? All right, the right shoulder is their right arm, the animal. It's again the reminder of that the priests have this role of being mediator between God and man, that there will be right hand or fellowship between God and man. Let me ask you this. You like to quote, we are all priests. Where is that role in your life? 90% of our living and 90% of our usage of our time, our talent, our resources, everything is mainly used for souls? No, for ourselves. For ourselves. Who can honestly say, I really make the effort to be mediator between God and man, to lead people onto Christ. I go to work, that is my heart's desire, my heart's purpose. I go to school, it's not to get the best result and grades and all that. My purpose is there to be a mediator, the right hand of fellowship, to reconcile people to God and to help people who are Christians but they know the truth wrongly, taught wrongly, how to help them to be right with God. Are you concerned about that? No, most of us, when we say, I want to give the best, you must know this is part of it. This is part of it. God keeps saying, I save you to be a light, not to put it under a bushel. No man does that. All right? Now, so some of these principles. Now we have to ask, now practically, what does that mean in our lives? How to give my best? Of course, we cannot be exhaustive, but I give you 3 areas, generally. First, your time. Second, your talents. Third, your treasures. Right, to help you remember with 3 T's. Your time. What is the best time of the day for you? Students. Well, some of us are night owls, some of us are early birds. Why are both birds? I don't know. Right? Early birds, night owl. What is the time of the day where your mind is clearest, freshest? I want to give my best to the Lord. Then when it comes to your time, do that. Do that. Don't wake up in the morning, my mind is clear. I go study my secular school work and I give up my best. Okay, when I'm tired already, all right, now I'll do my devotion. No, the time where your mind is clearest, freshest, we have the most energy, use it to do your quiet time. Use it to pray. Not, I do all the housework and everything. Now I'm very tired. All right, this leftover time, the principle that we've learned. Now I go and pray and you doze and fall asleep. If that is happening, I say, Lord, I've not been giving you my best time of the day. My best time of the day. Now if you're a night owl, I used to be a night owl. Now I'm still a night owl, not that by choice. But I begin to learn. Sleeping early, if you can, is good. All right? Getting up early is good because the best time is you prepare yourself to go into the world. I think that's good, right? The Lord showed that example as well. You will often wake up early in the morning to pray. Your freshest time. Your freshest time. Students, what is that? Have you been giving your best time to the Lord? No, if I got test, got exam, I'm going to ignore God. What is your best time? Well, the Lord's Day is definitely one of the best time. What do you use it for? The best time means the time that is set apart where you get to learn God's Word, where you get to fellowship. That is the best time. No. Those days, I've got a lot of things I got to do, that I intend to do, that I want to have my own pleasure. When I have time, I might go, leftovers. So Christian, whenever you know that assigned time that God has assigned through the church to learn about Him, to get close to Him, to serve Him, and you don't go, you cannot say, I'm giving the best to the Lord. Remember, until there's consecration, all these are false. You won't do this. The principles of the sacrifices are there. The best time to pray, the best time to study God's Word. Now, what about the best time to do God's work? To do God's work. Let me do everything that I need in life because they're more important to me. Now I'm very tired. Okay, I'll sit down and plan and do something for God. Never that, the best. Those who are in the church extension program, church extension building team, that must be our principle. Lord, I use the freshest time to plan to do your work so that I don't miss out anything. All right? For example. Now, then the next one. Let me see. Well, the next one is the best time of your life. The prime of your life. Now, many people feel later when I'm retired, when I'm older, when I have more time, after I establish my career, after I establish all this, then I will be serious about my walk. Then I will give my best to the Lord. But now I got to get the best for myself. The time of your life. The time of your life. Very often people in church, they choose not to serve. Because they say, this is the prime time of my life. I can achieve so much. I will regret if I don't. Well, I hope that you understand the principle, all right? Not leftovers. Until when I've done everything that I want to, then I give my leftover time to God. Now, next one, talents. All right, quickly. Talents. Your energy, your abilities. Please don't use the example earlier on. Huh? I can draw, I can play games, I can whatever. So I do it in a sinful way and just say, I give this to God. And therefore, I'm giving my best. Do you exercise your greatest carefulness and diligence? You are very careful. Are you as careful in your schoolwork as in reading the Bible? Read the Bible, okay, I read today. The best, energy. I will spend more carefulness in reading God's Word. That is, I'm giving Him my best attention, my best of my intellect. So when you come for Bible studies, you say, I can answer most of my school questions. I cannot answer things in Bible studies. Why? Because I've not given the best of my intellect to pay attention, the intellect that God given me. I would use it very carefully in school. I would sit right in front of the class and listen, and pay attention and copy notes. But in church, I'll sit right at the back and so that I can snooze or so that no one will notice that I'm distracted. Then you're not giving the best of your intellect, your energy to God, right? So I say, now, Lord, I must change. I must give the best to you so that I will get the best understanding of your word and therefore I can be the best in my consecration to you constantly. Well, what about, do you tire yourself? Leftovers. Well, until I've done this, done that, done this, until I'm very tired physically. I will pray very hard, play and play and play. Okay, then I go for prayer meeting or go for worship, and then no more energy there and very tired. Well, I will cut out these things so that I will have the freshest energy for God. Right? Likewise for the adults. So please, certain days, you must know Sunday is the best day. I want to give of my best concentration, my best energy to worship, my best. Not Sunday is good. I can go to church and kind of like chill, all right, for a few hours. Not that. The best to the Lord. Now, I can say many more, but we're running out of time. What the best treasure? Treasure. When you have finances. Now, most of us, when we come to buy expensive things for ourselves, no problem, don't even think. Click order. But to give a little bit more to God's work, let me think very hard. Anything that is for the Lord is the best. Now, remember, we had to buy something, and one person said, the best for the Lord, the best for the Lord. Many people have this idea. Our house, our own things, buy the best features, the best quality, the best whatever, the latest. God's church, we must be careful with God's money. We must be good stewards, right? Don't spend so much. God's money, It was not in the sacrifices. The best is for the Lord. Now, I'm not saying we waste money. Right? We buy things that we don't need the features just because it's the most expensive. I'm not saying that. We must do our due diligence. But we must not have that attitude. When it comes to home, the best. Don't think about this. When it comes to God, just save money. Be careful of that attitude. All right? So some people, they don't want to give. But they say, why spend so much? No need. Then I don't need to give so much, right? The best for the Lord. Now, I remember a Christian that I knew a long time ago. She said when she was growing up in their home, they had a farm, fruit farm. And they sell the fruits, all right? They plant, I guess, out of hobby, and they will sell the fruits in the market and give the money to the Lord. And they grew up with this principle. The parents always taught them, we will go and pick the fruits now. All right? After we gather all the fruits, there are two baskets. All right? The very best in this basket, those not so good in this basket. All right? The not good ones are for us to eat. The best ones are to be sold to get the best money to give to the Lord. Now, that's the attitude. They grew up like that. So it's always the best is for the Lord. I get leftovers, not God get leftovers. The best for the Lord. You're ready to spend money on expensive gadgets and things for your home. Husbands, housewives, singles. Now let me ask you, when it comes to things that will help you grow spiritually, FEBC course, very expensive, right? But your one meal costs more than that. Anything that will help you to serve God better, anything that will help you learn about God better, whether it's gadgets, whether it's software, be ready to spend. Money is given. If you want to use money for the best way, the best is to help you grow spiritually, right? Spend on that. Now, there are many things that are very useful. Not too long back, I discovered OneDrive, all right? Very useful. I can serve God anywhere, anytime. I don't need to have my own drive with me. I can do anything, anywhere. On the way to visit people, I can work as well. Then I discovered another software called CloudBeats. Suddenly I'm doing advertisement. All right, I researched. And CloudBeats allow me to listen to my FEBC courses, listen to things, messages and thing and all that on the fly, on any device. Access my OneDrive. No problem. When I'm on holiday, wherever, I can continue to keep learning God's Word. These things, buy. Children, I know what you're thinking. Now I say, God, they buy this for me, buy this for me. I want to learn God's Word. You better be honest. Use money to buy what is best for your spiritual growth. Whatever is best for the Lord's work, don't even feel that, best for myself first. Now, with all that, I'm just giving examples. Now, in closing, let's look at the rest. Chapter 2, 1 Samuel chapter 2. For Samuel chapter 2. Now then, after that, suddenly in verse 18, God switches. But is a very important term. But Samuel ministered before the Lord, being a child. Now this is a slap to the sons of Belial who would not bother in the principles or give the best to the Lord. This was a slap. First and foremost, Samuel ministered, what? Full stop. Before the temple, before the Lord. Samuel was different. He did it before the Lord. Means he did it in his heart very carefully. So now, of course, at this age, he's not offering sacrifices, all right? So minister before the Lord means whatever Eli told him to do that is allowed in his age, he did it to the Lord. These sons of Belial. Now, the second slap is being a child. You know that slap? But being a child means this is a little kid. He had more sense of consecration and devotion and separation and giving the best to the Lord. He made sure that whatever is right before the Lord is told to do, he does it. And he was a child. And it's grown-ups who should know better. Now, before we call them the sons of Belial, we have to ask, I'm a son of the living God, but am I also a son of Belial? Profitless to God. Because it's not about the Lord. It's about me first. Grab for myself first. Use the best for myself first. And leftovers for God. Then we are sons of Belial. Profitless, right? But the child, what a slap to our face. Now then, verse 19. The mother made him a little coat and brought it to him from year to year. And then verse 20, Eli blessed Elkanah. Verse 21, the Lord visited Elkanah and gave her more children. Now what is there to learn? Why suddenly this contrast? Now we learned about giving the best to the Lord. Now you will see the Lord blesses those that give the best to the Lord. That is the principle. Now the contrast is, when the mother brought him a little coat, all right, and they say from year to year. You know what that means? Mothers, you understand. Parents, you understand. Elkanah went with her. When you bring a coat to the child, in your heart means the whole year when you're making that coat, what's in your thought? I'm not taking him back. That's why you bring the coat to him. And every year you bring a new coat to him. You're staying there permanently. You see, Hannah was blessed because she gave of her first fruit. Without thinking, she wanted the Lord to have, and she returned it to the Lord. She understood, all for you, Lord, and never taking it back. It's yours. So this bringing of the coat every year emphasizes to us that there was no intention for Hannah to change her mind. And as a result, God blessed her with more. Do you know why God blessed those who always give their best, who live a life of consecration, devotion, separation? And when they offer the best, God receives it and God will bless. Do you know why? Very simple reason. Parents, you understand that. The child that is most faithful steward, that whatever you give and say, use it for this, they will always use it for that and never say, I use some for myself first, all right? In fact, I use the best and then the leftover, I use it for what daddy and mommy asked me to do. That is the child that you bless the most. Now, more money. Now, more resources. Now, more responsibility. Because you know that the child will always use what you give to the child according to what you want the child to use it for. And he'll always do his best for that. Right? That is why you keep giving to the child. That is why God blesses. Not God, I do this, I give you. God, when are you going to bless me in return? You will not get the blessing. Because God will know you will not use it in your best, give your best to your best of ability back to God. So you understand the principle, right? God blesses those who give the best, because when God blesses you more, God knows that you'll always give back to Him the best, and He will keep using it, and it's a circle, always, for His glory, for His use, for His kingdom. That is why God will keep blessing. I'm not saying it's always physical blessing. There are different, many spiritual blessings. So, Christians, when you begin to understand all this, which life would you choose? Sons of Belial, which God abhors. And many of us who live such a life, we stumble. Other Christians, we make other people even say, Christianity is horrible. Or, well, those that give the best. Now let us rise to sing the closing hymn, 405. 405, let us all rise. 405, and let's search our hearts.